It's 40 degrees outside, the kind of heat where the pavement burns through your shoes. And in Chongqing, one of the hottest cities in China, millions of people are doing something that sounds completely insane. They're sitting down to eat the hottest, spiciest meal imaginable. Boiling broth, Sichuan peppercorns that numb your entire mouth, dried chilies that would make most people cry. And they're not doing this despite the heat. They're doing it because of the heat. To most of the Western world, this makes absolutely no sense. You're hot, so you eat something that makes you hotter? But to the Chinese, this isn't strange at all. In fact, it's backed by over 2,000 years of medical philosophy. And, as it turns out, modern science is starting to agree. This is the story of hot pot. How a meal invented by broke, hungry boatmen on the Yangtze River became a $200 billion industry, a national obsession, and one of the most clever tricks in the history of food. To understand why the Chinese eat boiling hot food in boiling hot weather, you first need to understand where hot pot came from. And the origin story is not glamorous. Go back about 100 years to the 1920s, to the Chaotian Men Wharf in Chongqing. This was one of the busiest docks on the Yangtze River, a chaotic, sweaty place where thousands of boatmen, porters, and laborers worked backbreaking jobs hauling goods up and down the river. These workers had almost no money, and they had to eat. So they did what resourceful people have always done. They got creative. Local butchers would throw away the parts of the cow that nobody wanted to buy. Tripe, liver, stomach, intestines. The dock workers would collect these scraps, wash them, and throw everything into a big clay pot sitting on a portable stove. They'd add water, a handful of dried chilies, some Sichuan peppercorns, a bit of salt, and whatever vegetables they could get cheap. Then they'd wait for it to boil. The iron basin inside the pot was divided into sections, so each worker could cook their own ingredients in their own space and only pay for what they put in. It was cheap, it was filling, and it was devastatingly spicy. Pretty soon, street vendors saw an opportunity. They'd carry the broth and ingredients on bamboo poles through the streets of Chongqing, selling bowls to anyone who was hungry. These were the famous stick men, walking hot pot restaurants on a shoulder pole. For decades, hot pot stayed in the streets. It was working-class food, rough and honest, just like Chongqing itself. Then, around 1934, something changed. A small restaurant in the city center did something nobody had done before. They put hot pot on a proper dining table with proper chairs and proper bowls. They made it a sit-down meal, and suddenly, hot pot wasn't just for dock workers anymore. It was for everyone. But the real explosion came later. During the Qing dynasty, going back even further in history, hot pot had actually been a favorite of emperors. The Qianlong emperor was so obsessed with it that he reportedly ate it at almost every meal. His successor, the Jiaqing emperor, held a coronation banquet featuring 1,550 hot pots. That's not a typo. 1,550 pots, all simmering at the same time. So hot pot has this incredible range, from the poorest dock workers to the richest emperors. It belongs to everyone. But none of this explains the most puzzling part. Why do you eat something boiling hot when it's already boiling hot outside? To understand the logic, you need to step into a completely different way of thinking about the human body. And that means understanding the basics of traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM. In Western medicine, your body is essentially a machine. Parts break, you fix them. In TCM, your body is more like a weather system. Everything is about balance. The balance between yin and yang. Yin is cool, moist, and calm. Yang is hot, dry, and active. When they're in balance, you're healthy. When they're out of balance, you get sick. Now here's where it gets interesting. Summer is the season of maximum yang. The heat outside pushes yang energy to extreme levels, and according to TCM, this creates a problem you wouldn't expect. Your interior actually gets cold. Think of it this way. In summer, all your body's heat and energy rush to the surface, to your skin, to help you sweat and cool down. But that means your core, your digestive system, is left with less warmth than it needs. TCM calls this condition external heat, internal cold. Your outside is on fire, but your stomach is shivering. In TCM, the stomach is described like a pot sitting on a stove. The spleen is the fire beneath the pot. When the digestive fire is strong, your body breaks down food efficiently, extracts nutrients, and produces qi, the vital energy that keeps everything running. But when that fire gets weak, say because all your yang energy has rushed to your skin in summer, digestion slows down. You feel bloated, tired, heavy, and sluggish. Sound familiar? That's how a lot of people feel in summer. So what do? You reignite the fire. And one of the most effective ways to do that, according to 2,000 years of Chinese medical philosophy, is to eat warming foods: hot broth, ginger, garlic, Sichuan peppercorn, chili. These aren't just flavors, they're medicine. The spicy ingredients in hot pot are specifically chosen to warm the middle burner, strengthen the spleen, and drive moisture out of the body. Chongqing, remember, isn't just hot in summer. It's brutally humid. The city sits at the junction of two rivers, and the air in summer feels like a warm, wet blanket. TCM says this humidity invades the body and creates dampness, a condition that leads to lethargy, brain fog, poor appetite, and joint pain. And what fights dampness? Heat. Specifically, the kind of heat that makes you sweat from the inside out. Hot pot is essentially a prescription, a delicious, communal, spicy prescription. People in Chongqing will tell you this openly. They don't just eat hot pot in summer because they like it, though they obviously love it. They eat it because they believe it drives out the moisture, rebalances their body, clears their sinuses, and makes them feel lighter and more energetic afterward. And many people report that minor ailments like headaches, nasal congestion, or joint stiffness actually improve after a good hot pot session. Now, here's the really fascinating part. For centuries, Western scientists mostly dismissed this kind of thinking as superstition. Eat hot food to cool down? That sounds like an old wives' tale, but it turns out the Chinese were onto something real. Let's talk about capsaicin, the compound in chili peppers that makes them burn. When you eat capsaicin, it binds to a specific receptor in your mouth and body called TRPV1. This receptor normally detects actual heat. It's the same receptor that tells you when you've touched something hot. So, when capsaicin hits it, your brain receives a signal. We're overheating. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between real heat and chilly heat. It panics. It activates your body's emergency cooling system. Your heart rate increases. Blood vessels near your skin dilate. And most importantly, you start to sweat. And sweating is the single most effective way the human body has to cool itself down. When sweat evaporates from your skin, it carries heat away with it. That's basic thermodynamics. So, by eating something that tricks your body into thinking it's overheating, you activate a powerful cooling response that actually lowers your core temperature. In 1998, Cornell University biologists analyzed more than 4,500 traditional recipes across 36 countries and found that spice use increased significantly in hotter climates. Their main conclusion was that spices like chili, garlic, and ginger evolved as powerful antimicrobials. They helped prevent food from spoiling in hot weather before refrigeration existed. That explains the hot climate, spicy food connection at the population level. And separately, the capsaicin in those chilies was doing something useful at the individual level too, triggering the sweat-based cooling response we just described. 2 survival benefits, 1 ingredient. The cultures who figured this out earliest, like Chongqing, just happened to do it 2,000 years before anyone wrote it up in a journal. There's also the endorphin factor. Capsaicin triggers a pain response, and your brain responds by releasing endorphins, natural painkillers that create a sense of pleasure and well-being. This is why people who eat spicy food regularly describe it as almost addictive. The burn is followed by a warm, euphoric glow. In a way, hot pot doesn't just cool you down physically, it lifts your mood. So when your Chinese friend tells you that eating hot pot in summer drives out the dampness, they're using different language. But the underlying mechanism is remarkably consistent with what modern science now understands. The Chinese figured this out 2,000 years before anyone had heard of capsaicin receptors. That's not superstition. That's observational genius. But there's one more thing that makes hot pot special, and it has nothing to do with medicine or science. It's about how you eat it. Hot pot is not a meal you eat alone. It's structurally impossible to eat alone. Well, technically you can, but it defeats the entire purpose. Hot pot is designed to be shared. The pot sits in the center of the table, and everyone around it is cooking, talking, eating, and laughing together. There's no chef in the kitchen deciding what goes on your plate. You choose your own ingredients, you cook them at your own pace, you dip them in your own sauce. And by the way, the dipping sauce station at a Chinese hot pot restaurant is an art form in itself. Sesame oil, crushed garlic, oyster sauce, chili flakes, cilantro, green onion. Every person's sauce is different, and people are very serious about their personal blend. In Chinese culture, eating together around a shared pot is one of the most powerful expressions of closeness. The Chinese word for it captures it perfectly. Tuanyuan, meaning reunion or togetherness. Hot pot is the food of reunions. It's what you eat when the family comes together for holidays. It's what friends eat on a Friday night. It's what colleagues eat to celebrate a deal. In Chongqing alone, there were nearly 27,000 hot pot restaurants as of 2019. That's in one city. Think about that number. It means that almost everywhere you look in Chongqing, there's a hot pot restaurant. Some are tiny street corner operations with plastic chairs. Others are built into the side of a mountain overlooking the Yangtze River, with gardens and lights and views that look like something from a movie. One of the most famous spots is the Loquat Garden Hot Pot on Nanshan Mountain, where over 700 tables are spread across a hillside surrounded by fruit trees. In May and June, you can pick loquats from the branches while you wait for your beef to cook. It's absurd and wonderful and perfectly Chongqing. And here's something most outsiders don't know. The pre-made base is simmered before service. And the longer it goes, the more those 67 different spices and condiments release their full flavor. Beef tallow, yes, beef fat, is the foundation of a traditional Chongqing base. It's rich, heavy, and intensely aromatic. This is not a light meal. This is a commitment. And yet, even in the peak of summer, when the temperature in Chongqing hits 40 degrees and the humidity makes the air feel like soup, restaurants are packed. People wait in line for an hour. They sit down, they sweat, they eat, they laugh, and by the end of the night, somehow, despite having consumed a volcanic cauldron of chili and peppercorn, they feel better than when they walked in. So the next time someone tells you that eating hot pot in summer is crazy, you can tell them this. It was invented by dock workers who had nothing and turned scraps into one of the greatest meals on earth. It's backed by a medical philosophy that's over 2,000 years old and understood the human body in ways Western science is only now catching up to. It works, Because capsaicin tricks your brain into cooling you down from the inside out. And it survives because it's not really about the food at all. It's about the people you share it with. Hot pot is a 2,000-year-old life hack hiding inside a dinner. And honestly, the Chinese figured it out before the rest of us even started asking the question. That's 5,000 years of whatever for you. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe. We've got a lot more where this came from. Next week, we're going underwater to visit a Chinese city that's been sitting at the bottom of a lake for 60 years. You won't believe what's still down there. See you then.